Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
O'clock. Welcome to the Yuba County Board of Supervisor meetings. As a courtesy to others, please turn off cell phones or other electronic devices which may disrupt the meeting. And I got wipeout for a ringtone and I didn't shut it off, so I guess I better get it. Sorry about that. Jiminy Christmas. All right, well. I hate when this goes on. All right, sorry about that. Please have your mic, and if attending via Zoom, please have your microphones muted at times when you're not speaking. All items on the agenda other than correspondence and board and staff member reports are considered items for which the board may take action. The public will be given an opportunity to comment on action items on the agenda when the item is heard, and comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per individual or group. All right. We added a closed item a closed session item onto the agenda, and we have pulled item 400 from county departments. Any further changes, County Council?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Pledge of allegiance. John, you want to?
Sure.
Thank you.
Please rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God. All right, we're also going to move board comments to right after public comments. All right. Roll call.
Supervisor Vasquez.
Here.
Supervisor Blaser.
Here.
Supervisor Fuhrer is absent. Supervisor Bradford.
Here.
Supervisor Messick.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item being consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. All right.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments on consent agenda from the public? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Measure passes. Special presentations. We have 3, and one is present a certificate of recognition to Sean Pearl. Is Sean in the office? He's there? Okay. All right. Well, you would. This is a little unusual, but Sean, would you tell us who you work for? You don't work for the county, right?
I work for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah. Sean has been quite an asset to Yuba County and to the people of Yuba County, and in his duties as a wildlife now game warden. Okay, as a game warden, it's it's kind of like the Texas Rangers, one riot, one ranger. These are a list of the citations issued by Mr. Bertle here in his endeavors to keep Yuba County a bit safe out on the in the areas of the gold fields, let's say. And these are not little citations. Prohibited ownership of ammo, let's see, he's got a couple of driving on a suspended license. And here's a guy who's out there with 500 people who've been consuming adult beverages, so we say, and by himself, possession of a switchblade. There are rearrests in here. There's all sorts of things, and in 2023, at June, he had issued 154, and in 2022, he had issued 330. So he's done his best to help us out there, and we can't thank you enough for getting out there. But we asked you to outline a little about what you were doing out there, and you really didn't give us a lot here. But I want to thank you because I've been out in the hills, and for those who have actually driven in the hills or hill deputies, you know, there is no backup, and you're lucky if your GPS works and if you can radio in about that thing. So I wanted to say a special thanks to you for helping us and the sheriff keep the county safe.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
I'd like to thank the sheriff's department.
Pull the mic up.
I'd like to thank the Yuba County Sheriff's Department for being part of my family and backing me up and sending cover units and dispatching for me. They probably have saved me, and I'm standing here today because of them. So I appreciate it.
Well, Board of Supervisors Certificate of Recognition presented to Sean Pearl for your commitment to the safety, support, and well-being of the citizens of Yuba County. It is signed by all 5 supervisors. We thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, guys.
You've got a copy of this list here. Would you like to say a couple of words? More words?
I can't take credit for all that. My squad mates in the back there, my main partner John Deal, he deserves credit for some of that as well. He left us for Shasta County though, so.
Oh well.
You can't do law enforcement by yourself. You need support from, like I said, the Yuba County Sheriff's Department, dispatchers taking care of Yuba County streets. I also owe a debt of gratitude to my wife, legal assistant, IT specialist, court reviewer, dealing with being on the phone 24/7 and never being home. So she's probably my biggest advocate.
Thank you very much for helping our law enforcement keep this place safe.
Thank you, guys. It really means a lot to me.
All right. Unfortunately, I got to pull my glasses out. Receive introductory presentation and update from Yuba-Sutter Transit. The new transit, head of the new Yuba-Sutter Transit area. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Vasquez, supervisors. My name is Matthew Malk. I'm the new executive director for the Yuba-Sutter Transit Authority. Thank you for the opportunity to come here this morning and just introduce myself, and you can place a face with the name. I want to be respectful of your time. I don't have a long presentation or anything like that. Again, the main purpose is just to introduce myself to you and just touch on a few things that transit has coming up in the near future. Again, I took over in just about a month ago, mid-July, from Keith Martin, who retired after 36 years with the agency. Take the opportunity to congratulate Keith. But Keith is sticking around, fortunately, on a extra help basis to help me with the transition for the foreseeable future, which will be good for the agency. I'm actually excited to be back with the agency. I worked for the agency from 2013 to 2017. I worked for Keith. It's 2013 when he hired me that I moved up to Yuba City, and I've been here with my family ever since. So welcome the opportunity to be working back in the area. Most recently, I was the executive director for the El Dorado County Transit Authority for 4 years. So happy to be back and trade my hour-and-a-half commute for a 12-minute commute. Very nice. So again, enough about me. I wanted to just touch on 3 major initiatives that transit has coming up in the near future. In May, our board adopted the Next Generation Transit Plan. As you're probably aware, COVID had a significant impact on transit ridership over the last few years. And while it is coming back incrementally, not coming back to pre-pandemic levels. So in an attempt to address this issue, and there was the board chose to take an aggressive approach and did a comprehensive analysis of the system. Among other things, in this phased approach over the next few years, 2024 through 2027, essentially, we will be retooling our local services, replacing essentially some of our local fixed route services that are underperforming with more on-demand service, more dynamic and responsive, customer service friendly services. And that will roll out in the first phase in Yuba City and then on to unincorporated areas, as well as Marysville in later phases. This will expand access and improve customer service, as I said. I would urge anyone who's interested to visit our website. The entire plan is available there, but even the executive summary is a quick, good read and a good breakdown of the analysis that was done and justification for the changes that are coming. Second big initiative I wanted to talk about is our conversion to a zero-emission fleet. The state of California has mandated that all transit agencies convert to 100% zero-emission fleet by 2040, and our board has taken an aggressive approach to meeting that mandate 5 years early. So we've already begun preliminary work on that effort. But that effort is going to be contingent largely on the third initiative, which is building and moving into a new facility on a property that we recently purchased in Linda. With the conversion to zero emission, likely battery electric for the entire fleet, requires a larger footprint than what we have now. So necessitated us finding a new facility, and we're well along in that process and about to enter the environmental phase and final design on that new facility. So with that new facility, we'll have the room and we'll have the infrastructure then to support zero emission conversion by 2035, which is the goal our board has set. So again, happy to take any questions, but just wanted to introduce myself this morning and thank you for the opportunity. Be happy to take any questions. Otherwise, I'm at your disposal. Have my contact information. Feel free to call me anytime.
Any questions from the board?
I have a question through the chair. So I know that we're never going to have anything up in the hills for, busing or anything like that. But there's a lady up there, Chris Seeley, who started her own kind of ride share thing in Brownsville, Oregon House. Would there be any funding through your facility for fuel or anything for them?
We do not have any concrete plans for that at this time, but we are aware of the service. And our next gen plan did contemplate supporting in one form or another some volunteer driver programs in the outlying areas.
Okay.
Details of that I think are to be determined, but that is one recommendation to explore those kinds of opportunities to support volunteer driver programs, whether traditional volunteer driver programs or some version thereof.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Okay. Any other questions from the board members?
Through the chair, yeah, really just a comment. So thank you for coming today. Welcome back to Yuba-Sutter Transit. And I just want to say I'm excited about the implementation of the next gen transit plan. I think it's definitely going to be more accessible, convenient, and efficient for the users in our community. And I'm also excited that eventually it does include expansion plans to the Plumas Lake area. So
thank you.
I have a question. You said Governor Newsom wants to convert by 2035. What do you think of the feasibility of that actually being a successful date? I just, at the current rate of wind and solar, it'll take us for at least 2 centuries to catch up with actually meeting those demands, especially in cold weather. And I'm just wondering, I mean, electric vehicles have never proven good in cold weather, and we have a shortage of places to recharge, and actually the load to recharge. He said we had the summer moments that said, don't charge your electric vehicle. So what do I do now?
I certainly appreciate the comment. Yeah, the CARB requirement for transit specifically for heavy duty and medium duty vehicles is 2040, 100%. And so we have to incrementally begin purchasing a certain percentage of our replacement vehicles.
Sure.
So we're fortunate at Yuba-Sutter Transit. We don't need to go outside of our normal replacement schedule, and we can begin to bring zero emission vehicles into the fleet on an incremental basis, so we can get that experience. The technology does continue to improve pretty rapidly, but I won't say it won't be a challenge.
I'm saying, okay, it's like telling a guy to shut up and making him shut up are two different things. It's do we have any kind of a history on large vehicles with battery power? Has it ever worked anywhere in the world?
It has worked. I think with Yuba-Sutter, we're fortunate in a couple of respects. With the exception, obviously, of the more rural areas in the foothills, we have a relatively flat service area, which helps. And the climate changes are not, too extreme. So we have that kind of going for us. Battery electric vehicles, even hydrogen powered vehicles have been deployed for a number of years. I want to say roughly a decade in public service, in public transit, elsewhere in California, obviously not in Yuba-Sutter. So there is some experience there to draw on. Transit industry is great about sharing that information. So we're taking advantage of those opportunities. And they've been deployed with, some success. Not blanket success.
Okay.
But we do have an opportunity, I think, at this stage to take advantage of lessons learned, best practices, and implement that. We haven't been on the bleeding edge of this technology, so to speak. So
it's not like
having things going for us.
When you order those things, it's a big deal. You have to wait for them to build it. So we're taking a big chance on that thing working. But welcome to Yuba-Sutter Transit.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
All right. Any further
Through the
questions?
chair.
Yes.
I'm not sure the public truly understands the cost difference between your conventional buses and the new electric ones, but it's huge.
It is at least 30% more is the difference between a conventional diesel bus, for instance, and a battery electric version, and that's just the bus, not to mention the infrastructure.
Yeah, I don't know if I have my numbers right, but I thought your conventional ones are 500,000 or 600,000, and the new ones are like 1.2 million.
They can absolutely be that number.
Yeah.
Yes, especially for the larger over-the-road coaches, which the battery electric technology in buses has been most prevalent in the what you see our local fixed routes doing, which are 35 to 40 foot low floor traditional fixed route transit buses. The technology is just now entering the smaller vehicle, what we refer to as a cutaway, a 15 to 20 passenger type vehicle that we currently use on our dial-a-ride service, and what is contemplated for our demand response, general public demand response services in the next few years. That technology is just beginning to come forward. And then also on the other end of the extreme, our over-the-road coaches, our MCIs, our diesel MCIs, our 45 foot, 57 passenger over-the-road coaches that we use for our commuter services. There are some models, battery electric models, and just now beginning to hydrogen models entering the market. But that's a relatively new technology as well. But you're absolutely right. The cost incrementally is much more. And the lead times on any vehicles is long right now.
Well, it might be an understatement. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll say that Keith and the team at Yuba-Sutter has done the absolute best job they can do with the support of the board to set us up to meet these challenges. So I'm optimistic.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any questions from the public for you? No questions for the public. All right. Thank you very much, and good luck on your new endeavor.
Appreciate it very much.
All right. Receive an update from the Homeless Consortium. Okay. Here's the ray of hope.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I'm Melissa Shaw, Deputy Director of Public Health and Health and Human Services. Today, I will be sharing a brief overview of the Homeless Services Delivery System in Yuba County, and then sharing information on the housing and stabilization programs that Health and Human Services provides. Then I'll turn it over to Johnny Burke, Executive Director of the Sutter Yuba Homeless Consortium, who's with me here today. There are several agencies that provide services in the Yuba County Homeless Services Delivery System. Yuba County Health and Human Services offers a variety of rapid rehousing programs that serve Yuba County residents who receive services from our various divisions. We have programs for adult protective services customers, families with child welfare services involvement, How Works recipients, and lastly, we have rapid rehousing programs for persons experiencing homelessness with medical disabilities. Health and Human Services also contracts with the Salvation Army to run the day-to-day operations and shelter at 14 Forward. One of our partners, Sutter Yuba Behavioral Health, is responsible for providing outreach and engagement, which they accomplish with their HEART team. The HEART team is a mobile outreach team that works in conjunction with law enforcement agencies to meet individuals living outdoors to connect them to day centers, shelters, or housing programs. This team also administers the Start to Finish program, which assists unsheltered people who request substance use treatment with placement at treatment facilities. And lastly, Sutter Yuba Behavioral Health has 80 units of permanent supportive housing, of which 40 of those units are located in Yuba County at the new Cedar Lane apartment complex. I'll let Johnny discuss the Homeless Consortium more in a bit, but wanted to share that they're responsible for the annual point in time count, as well as coordinated entry services and operations, which is the beginning entry point for people to navigate Yuba County's homeless services delivery system. Adventist Health Route has a group of registered nurses who meet with unsheltered individuals and provide medical care, connection to medical services, and telehealth visits with doctors. The street nursing team spends time each week at the Life Building Center, as well as throughout the community, attempting to assist this vulnerable population. Adventist Health is also spearheading the Project Hope. The vision for Project Hope is that it will be a campus providing valuable and needed post-hospital housing, medical recuperative care, a sobering center, and housing navigation services. And last but not least, our nonprofit organizations such as Hands of Hope and the Salvation Army operate shelters in Yuba County for the unhoused residents to utilize. The shelters range from providing transitional housing, which offers supportive services, to interim housing, which is typically a short temporary stay not connected to programs or services for people who have nowhere to spend the night. So Health and Human Services receives allocations funded on a one-time basis for specific populations. While we utilize these funds to provide rapid rehousing services to the identified populations the grant requires, because the funding is unreliable, it makes long-term planning challenging. Currently, it's projected that 2 of our rapid rehousing programs will not be renewed by the state next fiscal year, which are Bringing Families Home and Home Safe. These are all of the rapid rehousing programs that Health and Human Services offers. Rather than have homeless services siloed across divisions, we've consolidated it to one team in Health and Human Services. This allows for better coordination and streamlined communication within Health and Human Services and with our community partners. First, we have the Housing Support Program, which targets CalWORKs families or families eligible to CalWORKs. One of the flexibilities with the CalWORKs program, with the Housing Support Program, is that it's intended to keep families who dwell together living together. So if you have a nuclear family who resides with an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, where the nuclear family receives CalWORKs, but the aunt or uncle do not, the Housing Support Program may still provide rental and move-in assistance and does not exclude the extended family. Next, we have the Housing, Disability, and Advocacy Program, otherwise known as HDAP. HDAP targets persons experiencing homelessness who have disabling conditions. One of the benefits and unique features of this program is that these participants are referred to a disability application expert with Freed. Freed works with the participants one-on-one to complete and submit disability applications, which are then processed expeditiously through the SOAR process, which is SSI, SSDI, Outreach, Access, and Recovery process. Next, we have our Bringing Families Home program, which targets families involved with our child welfare services units. Bringing Families Home is able to assist families at risk of becoming homeless and those that are experiencing homelessness. The Home Safe program serves individuals involved with our Adult Protective Services unit. And last but not least, our CMSP, Local Indigent Care Needs Program, provides assistance to individuals who were previously unserved in our rapid rehousing programs, as they were ineligible to the other rapid rehousing programs. So this really filled a gap. These participants have income, are experiencing homelessness, and have either a chronic illness or severe substance use or behavioral health condition. Social workers provide intensive case management to all of these populations to assist them in removing destabilizing barriers by connecting them to valuable resources and services, which help them retain permanent housing. Other funding that Health and Human Services has received are listed here. So each homeless housing assistance and prevention funding round was released as a one-time opportunity. Now that it seems established and we know that 2 additional rounds will be released, Health and Human Services is establishing an advisory committee to include community development, the Sheriff's Office, and probation, with the goal of establishing well-rounded priorities and ensuring the funds support projects that align with the county's strategic plan and support the county's overall best interest. The Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Round 2 funds are being used for an innovative regional housing project. Health and Human Services is working closely with Habitat for Humanity and the Sutter Yuba Homeless Consortium to create a permanent housing environment for the elderly and disabled population, with the hopes of including in-home supportive services providers on site to provide much needed services to the identified residents. And this is exciting because this will be one of the first of its kind in Yuba County. So in fiscal year 22-23, we assisted 102 households obtain permanent housing, and we helped to prevent eviction in 42 households. So that's 144 households that received rapid rehousing assistance and case management. Using the averages listed here, that's around $700,000 of the $821,000 that supported rent and move-in assistance. The additional $100,000 can be attributed to temporary shelter, such as motel stays, or ongoing rental assistance that's provided after a household has moved into their permanent housing. We also budget for our partnerships and collaboration. Health and Human Services has contracts with the Salvation Army, Hands of Hope, Freed, and the Sutter-Yuba Homeless Consortium to assist them in the part they play in Yuba County's homeless services delivery system. As I mentioned earlier, homeless services are consolidated into one team at Health and Human Services. So we have one team working closely with all of our community partners with the same goal in mind: assist those experiencing homelessness obtain and retain permanent housing. There are best practices and research-based techniques staff use to garner the best possible outcomes for the participants being served. Health and Human Services had the unique and important opportunity through the HDAP targeted strategic investment funding to provide trainings to housing and stabilization staff and our community partners. This helps to ensure that all agencies in the county are aligned when operating their specific homeless services. Nonprofit organizations are not always able to provide trainings, and this was valuable and that they were able to attend with us as well. As I noted in the previous slide, 102 households were assisted in obtaining permanent housing, and 42 households were assisted in preventing eviction from where they were currently living. In the CalWorks Housing Support Program, in both fiscal year 21-22 and 22-23, the housing retention rate was at 90% or higher, meaning 90% of the participants who obtained housing retained their housing. In the housing support program, housing retention is tracked for a minimum of 2 years. Our housing support program has a unique trait that can be attributed to this high housing retention rate. The housing support program offers classes that teach participants the importance of the landlord and tenant relationship. Classes also teach how to be a good neighbor, how to be a responsible tenant, and how to communicate with your landlord. Across all of the rapid rehousing programs, though, is the most important component to successful housing, which is the relationship we have with landlords who house our participants. If landlords are experiencing challenges with a tenant, they can call one of the social workers, program aides, or supervisors, who then acts as a liaison between the tenant and the landlord to preserve the relationship and the tenancy. Many of our rapid rehousing programs are also able to provide assistance with repairing damages if a tenant does move out of the property. While this can happen, it's a rare occurrence due to the high level of case management involved with rapid rehousing and the staff's relationships with property managers and landlords. Coming up this fiscal year, some of our plans include helping the Salvation Army with repairs at both 14 Forward and the Depot. We anticipate receiving additional rounds of homeless housing assistance and prevention funds. And as I mentioned earlier, in preparation for that, we're organizing a county advisory committee to identify the best possible projects for those funds. Again, the committee consists of representatives from Health and Human Services, Community Development, the Sheriff's Office, and Probation. Not included in this slide, but an endeavor that Health and Human Services will continue, is our participation in a multidisciplinary team involving various agencies such as Marysville Joint Unified School District, the Salvation Army, and Sutter-Yuba Behavioral Health to ensure that any youth experiencing homelessness is connected to all the resources available to help them meet their needs. And lastly, we look forward to continue partnering with Adventist Health Right Out to see their Project Hope concept come to fruition. Now I'll turn it over to Johnny Burke, Executive Director of the Sutter-Yuba Homeless Consortium, to share about his organization.
Well, good morning, Board of Supervisors. It's glad to be here. I rarely get an opportunity to do a full 3-hour presentation on the consortium, so thank you very much for that opportunity this morning. Hope you guys are ready. I am not nearly as polished as Melissa, but I will do my best to present on the Homeless Consortium, what we do. Something that caught my mind before we even get into the slides that Melissa mentioned about the potential loss of funding that Yuba County is looking at with the Home Safe and the Bringing Families Home. Those two programs, along with the housing support program that Yuba County has used excellently to get children off the streets. If you've been in this area for a long time, and I know all of you have, there was a time where you could go out to homeless camps, namely Hollywood Trailer Park, the jungle thorn tree area, if you're familiar with that, behind the cemetery. You would go out in some of these camps several years ago. You would see large groups of families, including small children. You just don't see that anymore. And it's because Yuba County's done an excellent job, Health and Human Services has, by using those funding to get families housed and get children off the streets. So hopefully those will be able to be replaced and those programs will be able to continue on. My name is Johnny Burke. I think I've met all of you before, but I am the Executive Director of the Sutter Yuba Homeless Consortium. I have been for the last 3 years and very much enjoying the work that we get to do with all the partners in our community to work on assisting folks that are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness to become housed and permanently housed and stabilized. And so just a little bit about us, if you don't know, and I know this is probably familiar for most of you supervisors, but for the public who may be watching and those behind me, a little bit about the Sutter Yuba Homeless Consortium. We are known as the continuum of care in our area, and that's why we use the term COC. And if you come to one of our stakeholder meetings, you see a lot of acronyms. You almost feel like you're in the military. We throw on SYHC, COC, all these different grants have different letters, but the Continuum of Care program is through Housing and Urban Development. It was developed for these 3 goals, which was a community-wide commitment to the goal of ending homelessness, providing funding for nonprofit providers and others doing the work in the area, and then really collaborating and promoting access to different programs. So that's just a quick snapshot of what the COC program is. And the Sutter Yuba Homeless Consortium has been a 501c3 nonprofit that's been serving as the COC in our area since 2008. So that's what we do, or that's who we are, I guess you could say. The things that we oversee in that role is that we manage funds in our area that get distributed to local agencies, nonprofits, government municipalities, occasionally private entities as well. And those funds primarily come from either HUD, which is a very small amount, or state of California. And then we receive some private grants too. So we manage those funds and distribute them out. So we don't do a lot of direct client relations. That's what your Health and Human Services Department is doing. That's what places like Hands of Hope, Salvation Army, Habitat for Humanity, those folks that are getting funded through the funds that we receive, they are doing the hands-on services. We manage the Homeless Management Information System, which we call HMIS, and we do all the reporting to both state of California and HUD. And the HMIS system, we have a very robust system. At last count, we had several hundred users in our area. That's individual users that work for different agencies. And what they do is compile and place their information on their clients in the system so we can track and do all our referrals and keep track of statistics and a variety of different things using that program. And it's working out very well. We also oversee, the slide says oversee and manage the coordinated entry program. Hands of Hope actually manages and oversees the program at the 2 Hands of Hope locations. The one in Yuba County is at Life Building Center, located at 131 F Street. And then there's Hands of Hope on Spiva and Yuba City. But what we do is we oversee and manage the referral system and the data. So pretty much anybody who's going to get a referral to any services, it's going through our referral system to one of the agencies in the area. And then we manage that data and follow up and things along those lines. And we also schedule all the classes operated. I don't even know what word that is. You guys can check that out later on. Is this recorded? Oh man. We manage and oversee the classes that are offered at the Life Building Center and Hands of Hope to provide assistance to folks that are moving from homelessness to house. So, and the last thing is really one of the biggest things. Besides the money, besides the data reporting and all that stuff, is the collaboration. Our area has a very unique relationship here. And I know that you know it. Being supervisors, you obviously care very deeply about Yuba County, or else you wouldn't be doing this job for the whatever $30K a year we pay you to do to get all the flack. You do it because you love this area. And our area is very unique in that we work, Yuba County and Sutter County, our bi-county area works together, and so do all the partner agencies. If you rewind back to 2015 or back, all the agencies in the area were very siloed, doing things individually, and our coordinated entry system was brought in and connected, and Yuba County was a huge part in that, making that process happen. And so collaboration is huge for us to be able to develop new projects, find out new places for housing, shelter, and more. And so that's a little bit about what we oversee. Talking about coordinated entry, which is the bread and butter, Melissa mentioned that it is the entry point for folks that are experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And coordinated entry is, the best way to think about it is it's a one-stop shop. So if you run into somebody on the street, or maybe they call you up or through Facebook or however, and they say, hey, I am homeless, I need some help. or I am about to become homeless and I need some help, it's really just one simple answer. It's go to Life Building Center, if they're in Yuba County, over at 131 F Street. There they'll go in, they'll sit down with Hands of Hope case management staff to do an intake interview and determine how vulnerable and what things that they need. Some folks may come in and they may be, for instance, living in their car, and for whatever reason they're comfortable with that, they might just come in and want access to showers and laundry, and they can do that there. Other folks, I'd say the majority, come in looking for shelter or housing options and they get connected. Other folks come in looking for a variety of different things and then find out there's other things offered. They come in, just saying, hey, I'm homeless, I need help. And one of the first questions is, do you have an ID? No, I don't. Well, let's get you a voucher. Let's get you an ID, because you just can't do anything without an ID here. Do you have access to food resources? No. Well, let's get you hooked up with the county and talk about their SNAPS program or whatever program might apply to you. Do you have health insurance? No. Well, then let's get you connected with one of the providers in the area so that we can start addressing your health needs too. And really starting to build a base and a foundation for folks that are experiencing homelessness to be able to move out of that and get housed permanently. And so the coordinated entry program is the center of all of that. This is just a sample of the partners that work with us. Hopefully you can see all the different logos, but you'll see there's a ton of different agencies there. You'll see all the local municipalities listed, including Yuba County, including Yuba County Sheriff, including Yuba County Health and Human Services. It's a team effort to address homelessness in our area. And just a thought, I don't have a lot of financial slides for you, as far as I felt it's kind of boring to look at our overall budget and all those things, but typically on any given fiscal year, we manage between $2 and $4 million that comes in. It may not all be used in that year, because a lot of our grants, as you saw from Melissa's slide, they usually go for about 5 years. So a lot of times we'll get money up front for some grant and it goes out for the next 3 years to different agencies. But for an example, in the last fiscal year, Salvation Army is probably our primary funded entity, and $1.25 million went through the consortium to Salvation Army in the last year for programs such as their emergency shelter, rapid rehousing, some of their outreach that they do. Bridges to Housing got approximately $100,000 for the rapid rehousing programs and prevention work. And Hands of Hope, which managed the coordinated entry system, got over $115,000 in one fiscal year from us for case management and staff on site. And then all these other agencies have received funding at some point or another, or have given funding, or we've shared funding together. So just want to show you that it is an absolute team effort. So when we come up here and say, hey, I'm with the Sutter Yuba Homeless Consortium, we're not doing the work, you all are, and we're doing it as a team effort. That's why it's a continuum of care. So here's some fun numbers, because everybody wants to know how many people are homeless in our area. So this is a slide on our annual point, or I should say our biannual point in time count comparison. And you'll see the years 2019, 2021, and 2023. Now, if you look there, you'll say, whoa, the first thing that's going to grab you is, oh my goodness, our homeless number went down from 2021 to 2023, and everybody's popping out the streamers and balloons, and I get it's exciting, but it's not exactly accurate, and I'll tell you why. There's a little asterisk there next to the 2021 count. So looking at this number, first off, the top number there, that is Yuba and Sutter County combined. If you're not familiar with point in time count, it is something that HUD mandates that every COC does. Here's all our acronyms again. Every 2 years, they want you to go out and count every person who's experiencing homelessness in your area. And the way that HUD defines homelessness is that someone is either living in a place that's unsuitable for human habitation. That's their term. In other words, they're living outside in a car, someplace that's not designed for people to live normally, or they are staying in a shelter, or they're fleeing domestic violence. So those are the three categories that you can count people during your point in time count. So every year we've gone out, every 2 years, I should say, we go out and we grab a big gathering of folks in the area and try and hit every place that we can find folks that might be experiencing homelessness, try and get them to come into our coordinated entry sites, so that makes it a little bit easier to do surveys. We had an amazing point in time count this last year. We had over 100 volunteers, a ton of folks from Yuba County Health and Human Services and other partner agencies, as well as across the river. We just had a really big collaborative effort. But if you look at the number there, in 2019, we counted 721 folks. In 2021, we ran into a little virus that was going around called COVID. Andy Vasquez's favorite thing to talk about if you ever need a conversation point with him. And well, during that time, there was a surge and we could not go out. There was a surge going on. You couldn't put people in cars. There was no volunteers. Health and Human Services departments and everybody were tied up with lots of different things. So HUD allowed us to do what they called an alternative or an alternate data set submission. They gave us the option of either not doing one and doing one the following year, or doing this alternate data set. Now, we made the decision to submit a number, and the reason why is that we had several grants that we're handling that statutorily written that you would do a point-in-time count every 2 years to receive this funding. And so we didn't want to risk any of our partner agencies losing their funding by us not submitting a count. Even though HUD had pretty much assured us that there would be some exemption and no one would pull back money, we didn't want to risk it for anyone. So we did the alternate data set. And for the alternate data set, instead of going out and counting people, they give us the option of pulling numbers out of our system, our HMIS system I talked about earlier. HUD wanted a 30-day window of folks in the system, and our system only allows for a 90-day window. We asked them if that would be okay. They said yes. In addition, our system doesn't just have people that are HUD defined, which is that place unsuitable for human habitation, living in a shelter or running for domestic violence. We also have folks coming in that are what we call precariously housed. Somebody who you might have heard the term doubled up. You might have 3 families living in a 1-bedroom apartment. You might have somebody who's doing what we call couch surfing. You may have done it when you were in college, but some people that's a lifestyle at times, but they're still homeless, but not counted in the HUD numbers. We asked HUD if we would be able to use those numbers as well in our active list, because those folks come in that situation, they may not be in that situation within the next 90 days, and HUD approved at the time. So our number looked like it was a 46% jump from 2019 to 2021. However, it was primarily a large counting difference from going out and trying to find everybody in one day to a 90-day window of people that come into services and allowing for some non-normal HUD counting numbers. So back to 2023, this year in January, we went out, no more COVID restrictions, we could go out and do a normal count. So our number is down, but if you look, it's up significantly from 2019. And it's important to realize that there really wasn't a drop from 2021 to 2023. I can't tell you what the exact numbers are because the counting style was different, but we definitely have been increasing just like the rest of California. And so you can see the Yuba County numbers on the bottom there, 428 total number of individuals in 2019, then with that different counting style in 2021, 697, 2023, 545. If I had my way, I would not do a point-in-time count. And HUD recognizes that a point-in-time count is not the most accurate way to count homeless because you're doing your best to try and find everybody in one day. You get a week to count them and try and find people and record one specific night. Our night this year was January 21st. So we went out on Monday and went to City of Marysville and City of Yuba City and had teams go out and talk to people and say, where did you stay last night on Sunday night? And then we went out Wednesday and Thursday. And Wednesday, we went out in Yuba County in the unincorporated areas outside and tried to find people and ask the same question. Where did you stay Sunday night? Same thing for Sutter County the next day. Then we made phone calls to people that are in our system. Hey, are you still homeless? Yes, I am. Where did you stay on Sunday night? Sometimes when you would call those folks, because we have 963, we had over 250 around that number of folks that were precariously housed. Some folks we called up or we met and say, hey, they're accessing service. Where'd you stay last night? Oh, I came up with some money. I paid for my own hotel last night. And it's like, oh, I can't count you because that's not a HUD defined category. And it's like, where'd you stay last night? Oh, I've been on the streets, but my buddy let me stay on his couch last night. It's like, oh, I can't count you in our numbers because you're not considered HUD defined homeless. I wish we had a way of capturing every precariously housed person because this term precariously housed, they truly are homeless. They're in transition from one place to another. We don't have a way to capture all that except for when we go out in our point in time count and we encounter people or they're coming into our system. But what I prefer is what we actually see our numbers that come through our coordinated entry system. And you're going to see a significant change in the next couple of years as the state of California has instigated a new program they call HDIS, which is Homeless Data Integration System. And what California has realized is point in time count is nice, and it's historically we've looked at it, but it's really not live data. And so now we upload our HMS data and they can see how many people are coming in and out of homeless, because I explained to people a lot of times, it's like the ocean wave coming in and rolling out. Hello, microphone. And so there's folks constantly coming in and going out of homeless. And so when you look at just a 1 day number, it's not exactly the same as the number of people coming in over the course of the year. So I think you're going to see a lot of different reporting things come out in the next several years as California expands that program. I wanted to show you a couple of slides to talk about funding and costs involved. So I wanted to just give a couple of examples for you, because a lot of times we try and figure out, okay, how much does it cost to help somebody who's homeless? And that's very difficult to do, to put together and figure out all the different costs involved with case management and coordinated entry and all these things. And so what I wanted to look at is just a snapshot of one program in ESGCV. So ESGCV, another fun acronym, Emergency Solutions Grant with a coronavirus bent to it that was offered to us. We received almost $3.2 million over the last several years through this grant. And of that 3.2 million, almost $1 million went for rapid rehousing services to Salvation Army, Bridges to Housing, Adventist Rideout, and Yuba County. So of that money, of that roughly $1 million, the total number of people that were exited to a HUD-defined permanent destination was 238, which included 115 in Yuba County. So the cost from this grant per person, not per household, but per person, because you might have a household of 3 or 4 people, you might have a household of 1, just depends, was about $4,000 per person. That gives us a snapshot of what it takes just to move somebody from homelessness to house, just on the, we're putting you in a place, not including the case management, the coordinated entry, the outreach workers, the folks that are helping you along the way, but just the cost of moving somebody from a street, car, whatever the case may be, into a house per person. Now, I wanted to give you a snapshot of something else that we're trying to focus on that we haven't done a lot of in the past, and it started to become more important to us over the last several years, is that prevention. Keeping people in housing so they don't become homeless. And so over the last 2 years, we were awarded $250,000 from Sutter Health Foundation for prevention money specifically. This money went to Salvation Army and Bridges to Housing. They administered the program, and a total of 385 people, not households, but people, including 222 Yuba County residents, were kept in housing that were facing eviction. So this cost per person is about $610. And once again, that's per person, not per household. So you could have a household of 5 and maybe we assisted them with $3,000, whatever the case may be. But it gives you an idea that if we can keep people in housing before they become homeless, it's a lot cheaper if we can do that. And so prevention is becoming one of the major focuses for us. I know for Yuba County as well. Melissa mentioned some of their prevention numbers. But when we talk about a continuum of services, I always say to folks that, like, basically we try and focus a lot on the 2 bookends. And judging by the age of our supervisors, I understand you know what bookends are. If we have any millennials here, they probably have no idea because you can't put a bookend with a tablet, right? But for the bookends of homeless services, the entry point is someone becoming homeless for the first time. We would love to close that door. We could close that door or shut it some more and keep people from becoming homeless. We'd have a lot less people to focus on. The exit is folks into permanent housing. So those are our 2 primary points. Then everything in between is all the case management, the day services, emergency shelter, et cetera. So we are starting to focus more on that primary door, to close that door if we can. Finding funding for that is difficult. And California does not offer very much right now. So that is becoming a challenge. So that's a little bit about a couple of examples of funding and how that goes. I want to transition to our local strategic plan and what we're doing here locally. Hopefully you all got one of these local homeless action plans. If you haven't, your clerk's got them, and I have some additional in case somebody ran off with them. But just wondering,
Johnny.
Yes, sir.
Over here.
Hey, Dan.
I'm just trying to clear when you say, can you go back a slide?
Yes, sir.
On that $600.
Yeah.
What does that mean? 600 per what? I mean, is that per person for a day or a month?
No. So for prevention, and I'm sorry, I should have clarified what prevention is. These were folks that were kept in housing that were facing eviction. Someone who got a 30-day notice, 30-day notice, 60-day notice. Maybe they got some information from that there was going to be some sort of like PG&E, water, whatever like that. There was going to be a problem where they were going to become homeless because they couldn't pay bills or whatever. They came in for us and said, if you can help me pay my back rent, 1 month, 2 months, whatever. If you can help me pay this back utility, I won't become homeless because I can continue making payments and stay where I'm at.
So the 600 might keep them out of trouble for 30 days or something.
So I guess technically you could say that. Typically what happens is when folks come in for prevention assistance, if there's and it's up to the agencies to evaluate, but they look at the person and the typical story, if I can give you a typical story, and I don't have a number to back it up, but the typical story is I lost my job for 1 month and I got behind. Now I'm working again, I'm doing this thing again, but I've got all this back stuff and they're going to evict me because I can't pay it back. So you end up paying those previous bills, whatever utilities, and the person's flush again, and then they just keep going on. So we are going to have more stats on how many of these folks from this program remain housed. One of our conditions was that at 6, 12 months and 24 months intervals, we're going to check in and see how those people are. So hopefully in a year, I can give you some numbers and go, hey, of these 385 people, X is still housed, you know, that number and stuff. So it's
it just helps get them caught up and get them back on track.
Exactly. That's a design. And there's a lot of people in that category. Typically when we run numbers, so when someone comes into coordinated entry and they do an intake survey, they are asked a variety of different questions. And there's a whole block of questions say, mark any one of these boxes that contributed to you becoming homeless. And there's a variety of different things in there. Historically, our number one thing has been unable to pay rent or mortgage, which makes sense. Can't pay rent or mortgage, I became homeless. I lost my house. Number two has historically been loss of job or unemployment. And those two seem to have gone hand in hand. In the last couple of months, those have bounced down a little bit. And we've had some domestic violence issues that have come up and given us some higher numbers. But typically those are our top two. And a lot of times when folks, they might lose their job for a month or two and they're having trouble finding work. And then by the time they get a job, they're already getting an eviction notice, they become homeless. So for those folks in that category, if we can keep them in housing, they don't bounce in the system, which costs us more down the road and costs them a lot more because then they've got an eviction on their record. Then they've got to try and, spend the majority of their time figuring out where they're going to stay, how they're going to be protected, all those different things. Does that answer? Okay. Thanks, Don. And sorry, any questions as we come along? I know I speak fast. I go fast. I throw a lot of acronyms up there. And so please do stop me at any time. If I don't think it's a good reason to stop me, I'll just keep going, just so you know. So just kidding, guys. So here is the 2019 strategic plan that many of you were involved in, what we call the Ford Yuba-Sutter plan. These are the priorities that we've been working off of for the last several years until we adopted this new local homeless action plan recently. I just want to remind everyone, those five main categories that were adopted in 2019 and modified in 2020 were preventing homeless. So that was identified as a major need then. Creating safe and informed communities, and that's where a lot of the outreach teams and the partnerships with law enforcement and communicating with our communities about what's going on came out of. Expanding housing options. The more housing we have, the better chance we have of housing people. That's as simple as it gets. Providing consistent, accurate information. There was a lot of questions about, okay, how many people are homeless? So what are we doing and stuff? There wasn't a lot of good data sharing. Our data has gotten much, much sharper over the last several years as we really bear down and gotten our computer systems well. And last thing was finance homeless initiatives, which is basically just trying to bring additional funds in our area to be able to address homelessness. So those were the priorities that were adopted in 2019 and modified in 2020 and what we've been working on. And then a couple of years ago, state of California came out with this new plan or program, I should say, that Melissa mentioned, the HHAP or HHAP funding, the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention program. And this program looks like it's going to be sustainable for the near future from what we can see. They've already announced a round 5 coming out, and it looks like it possibly will be a yearly thing from California, but they haven't locked that in statutorily yet. And the first year we all received a lot of funds, and Melissa mentioned some of the funds that Yuba County used. I know in the first year of funding that the Homeless Consortium received, we had money that went out to Casa de Esperanza, Habitat for Humanity for housing out in Live Oak. Hands of Hope received a variety of funds, about $100,000 for case management and coordinated entry. Regional Housing got about $250,000 that helped out with to ice up the Cedar Lane project that I know you're all very familiar with. REST, which is Regional Emergency Shelter Team, received about $30,000 for their winter shelter. And Sutter County received $100,000 for their Better Way project. And so that was HHAP round 1. And then round 2 came out, and we collaborated with Sutter and Yuba County, and we're doing that project through Habitat through Humanity over at Turpin Street here in Yuba County. We're pretty excited about that. And when HHAP 3 was introduced, California put a little twist on things. They said, if you want to receive HHAP round 3 funding, you must all do a local homeless action plan. And we're like, cool, we already have this thing from 2019, and it wasn't sufficient for what they wanted. They wanted some additional details, numbers, they wanted more current. And so we went about and consulted out to have a new local homeless action plan, which is what you have in front of you. And I would just encourage you to read through it sometime. It's not very long for the most part. It's an easy read, but it gives you a lot of information about what's going on in our area and where we're going. One of the primary things was what we had to do first was to determine what were the needs, what was the gaps in the systems and the factors contributing to homelessness in our area. And so what we came up with were similar to the 2019, a couple of new things, but affordable housing, number 1 need. We just don't have enough affordable housing for folks. We have many people who are homeless who have a solid income stream, but it's very little. I didn't bring the numbers, but typically, this is what our numbers look like on any given month. For households with children, so you need at least 1 adult, 1 child, could be 2 adults, 2 children, who knows. That group typically averages 80 to 100% of that group has some sort of income. And that income usually averages around $1,300 a month. So that's for like a family unit. So you're thinking right now, you're doing the math in your head, $1,300 a month doesn't get you very far. But when we look at households without children, which are typically singles or couples, that group, only about 50% that are experiencing homeless have an income, and that income averages around $600 a month right now. And so you're doing the math and going, whoa, there's no place you can get for $600 a month unless it's a special project through regional housing, Habitat for Humanity, Yuba County, something like that, where there's some sort of subsidization either in the construction or the ongoing subsidization through regional housing or something like that. And so affordable housing still #1 need, and that's across California. It's not unique to Yuba-Sutter. Homeless prevention has risen #2. I mentioned that. That is something we're realizing the focus, because as we look at these numbers and the folks that we're helping, and there are hundreds of folks getting helped and housed every calendar year in Yuba County and Sutter County, we still have people coming into homelessness all the time. If we can somehow shut that door and slow that down, we can make a better impact on those that are already experiencing homelessness or at risk. Interim shelter, we quite literally don't have enough beds. We need to expand the number of emergency shelter beds we have available for folks. Physical and mental health services has become a higher and higher priority. On any given month, the number of people who are new intakes report that about 40% of them have some sort of disability, whether it be physical or behavioral health or mental health. And so that's become a higher priority and a gap that we need to address. And then community engagement. There's been a big disconnect over the last few years between the overall community and the work that's being done for homeless, to where we constantly get, if you don't believe me, try out this app called Facebook sometime and just type homelessness in Yuba County. See what you come up with the posts and people saying, what's being done? Nothing's being done. Well, there's a lot being done. And how can I help? And so there's a little bit of a lack of community engagement. It seems to be primarily municipalities, you guys, and nonprofits doing the work, and not as much community work going together to try and solve this. And so that was identified as one of our gaps. And so this is our plan. I won't go through it all. You can read it through, but there's 4 main strategies over the next several years that we'll be focusing on, and we will be aligning funding along with these priorities. First one is homelessness prevention. And so I've already talked about that. If we can keep people in housing, huge difference. #2, shelter and housing support. So this is grouping affordable housing and interim shelter, emergency shelter together. If we can continue to expand, I know Yuba County has some wonderful plans for interim shelter, and there's so many things that are happening in Yuba County exciting right now as far as affordable housing. So I'm very excited about what's happening here. The third one is homeless and community partnerships. We're looking to engage folks experiencing homelessness to get them to help with being part of the solution, as well as some different job programs that are already being pioneered, as well as getting our community to work together. So there's going to be a lot. That's new and different for us. That's not something we've ever focused on. This is going to be exciting going forward as we try and get more engagement there. And the last thing is health services expansion. As many of you all know, there's a new program in California called CalAIM through Medi-Cal. There's a lot of funds available that we can actually use through the managed care providers, through the agencies in their area, to be able to get people housed through their health plan and a variety of other things. And so as we continue to do mobile engagement, we've seen that the HEART team that was mentioned earlier, Adventist street nurse team, there's an eye care team out there, law enforcement outreach teams and code enforcement have been making a big impact in connecting with people that maybe weren't coming to coordinated entry and getting them connected to services. So we look to continue to increase those as well. So those are all the goals. That's what's upcoming. Last slide says questions. I'm sure there's some. I do have with me a notepad and a pen. And so if I don't know the answer to your question, I will certainly write it down and follow up with you all. And so
the first thing we want to do is you have a truth and estimate of time on that one.
What's that?
The 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, I didn't set the 15 minutes. That's why I said 3 hours, Andy.
Yeah, well, I know that, but community engagement, this is the first presentation I think you've done to the board. Is that correct?
Yes, this is the first time I've been invited to.
All right, and I think we need to do it on a more frequent basis so we can have some questions for you that are relevant to the immediate time, and not do this all in one shot. But we have questions from the board.
Yeah, through the chair. I think just 2 on the coordinated entry program. Are we making progress on that being more effective? And you and I have talked a lot about expanding hours. Any changes on that?
There's no changes to announce at the moment. but there are things in work that I think that we are going to see some expanded hours in the near future. I should look back at Rick Milhone, who's in the back here, and see if he's nodding his head right now or not. But that is definitely a priority, is to expand hours for both case management and assistance with that. And by the way, our coordinated entry system, although I believe that we're, just like most of California, under-resourced and underfunded, our coordinated entry system is second to none in the state of California. You will not find any other place that has a more coordinated system of agencies working together to help people. Does that mean that everybody gets helped on day one? No, not at all. That's where the under-resourcing, and that's why we have these gaps that we've identified. But the coordinated entry system as a whole is doing very well at identifying, providing services, and connecting folks to referrals. Expanded hours, I believe you'll see within the calendar year, I believe.
I'm going to write that down.
Okay.
All right. So you got to get them in there to start off with. So are we making any progress on the population that is declining services?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I have any numbers for you on that, Supervisor Blaser, but what we do have is a couple things going on. So first off, there's several outreach teams in the area that are doing fantastic work. HEART team, which was mentioned earlier through behavioral health. HEART stands for Homeless Engagement and Resolution Team. That group came out of the Safe and Informed Communities priority from our 2019 Ford Yuba-Sutter plan. That group's, we have folks that have been living out wherever, maybe River Bottoms, maybe somewhere else, that don't come into coordinated entry for a variety of reasons. Occasionally we will find, you'll contact somebody and say, hey, have you been to Hands of Hope? Have you been to Life Building Center? And they'll say, oh man, that person, they didn't help me out there. And they went 3 years ago and had one bad experience on one day that may have been related to their disposition that day or however they presented, who knows what the case may be. And so they're not interested in coming back in. And the HEART team has worked really strongly with a lot of individuals to establish a relationship and get them in. They do that along with the Adventist Street nurse team and along with the eye care team, which is also a division of contracted by Sutter Behavioral Health, and with local law enforcement. So for some of the folks that are in the back of the room, when they go out to do enforcement, it's compassionate enforcement. They're not walking up and saying, hey, you can't be here, move it. It is, hey, how can we connect your resources to change your current situation, to move you from homelessness to being housed? Have you been to coordinated entry? Have you been checked out Life Building Center? Do you know what's going on? And so there have been people that have been more receptive. We've recently, in the last, I'd say 6 months, begun a Monday morning multidisciplinary team meeting, a little different than the one Melissa mentioned earlier, but Yuba County is a strong part of it. And we have folks together, and we are targeting you could call them declining services population, but folks that have been chronically homeless in our system for a long amount of time for whatever reason, that maybe bounced out of different programs. And so we have a group on Monday morning that gets together and says, okay, we got this person, here's their situation. We tried to help them and couldn't have it. And we are connecting from those people and getting some success stories. Those folks typically take a lot more resources. If they've been homeless for a long time and they've been difficult to serve in the past, it's hard to get them over that hump, but there is some success stories coming out of that. So I do see progress on my end, but I don't have any big numbers to show you and say, yes, this is.
Well, the citizens' view is that it's deteriorating on the street. And from what I understand in the past, the first encounter law enforcement are seeing maybe 90% of declining services and the people they encounter on the street. They just say, leave me alone. And then even the HEART team, success rate of their first encounter is probably 0. It takes 4 or 5, 6 encounters with the same person to try to convince them to take up. Am I wrong on that?
No, I'd say without checking with them, I'd say that that's probably pretty accurate. From what I hear from HEART team, they go out and they know folks and they establish relationships and one day they're giving them a sandwich, the next day the person's finally coming into coordinated entry.
Yeah. Well, we are seeing a deterioration in what we see on the street in Marysville in particular. It's hard to find a citizen or a business that hasn't had a bad encounter in the town. So I don't have a solution, but I know the declining service population is not helping.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Law enforcement has their hands tied a lot about what they can arrest for and they can't arrest for and what can be prosecuted. A lot of these smaller crimes that happen, which are terrible. I mean, nobody wants somebody defecating on your business's doorstep. But in the big scope of things, it's really just citation if you can prove who did it and had some proof on it and things like that. It's a big challenge. And I don't know that I have a solution for that. I know that's where the compassion enforcement, where law enforcement is constantly trying to engage with folks to get them tied into services, to let them know that this is not the life for you if this is what you're chosen to be out on the streets. One of the things is that it's not just on this side of the river. The other side of the river, I believe that homeless has got more visible over the last couple of years because we've done a really great job. Law enforcement done a great job of getting folks out of the waterways and cleaning up most of the river encampments. And so some of those folks have naturally come into the cities who haven't made the transition into a different style of living. So
I don't have an answer. But everything you're doing is great. We got to keep doing it. So thank you.
So don't really have any questions, but just wanted to make a couple comments. So first of all, thank you for being here today. I think, as you mentioned, community engagement is really important. I think all of us here on a regular basis, the perception in the community that nothing's being done about homeless, I think we all know that that's not true at all. And so to be able to see all of the amazing things we are doing and hear about them and be able to share that message with the community, I think is important. I think I probably tend to oversimplify it. I know homelessness is super complicated and every individual that's homeless, right, is there for a different reason and requires a different set of solutions, right, to get out of homelessness. And I know that one of the things we do at Coordinated Entry is try to tailor that to individuals to help them. You touched a lot on the great partnerships we have in the community and everything we're doing with respect to services. You also, which I think is one of the main pillars, right? We need services. The next is housing, right? We need to ensure that there's housing for people to move into once they are successful in services. And we also need housing that's affordable for multiple income levels to help prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place, right? You shared how much cheaper it is if we can just keep people in housing and off the streets. Right. And so you talked a lot about that. I know Regional Housing Authority and Habitat and many other partners are involved in that. And then the third piece, and Supervisor Blaser touched a little bit on this, and hopefully we can have a follow-up presentation on this, but I think it's really the enforcement component, right? And so the community is very interested in that piece as well. And I know there's limitations to what can be done. And I know we're making great progress. And so I appreciate, law enforcement and code enforcement and all that they do to help with that piece, right? That's a primary way to get people into services, right? And encourage that and make them aware. And so, kind of those three things. And I know that's outside the scope of what the Homeless Consortium and Health and Human Services are primarily focused on. But that's an important piece as well of the puzzle. And so hopefully we can follow up with a presentation on that and hear about all the great things that code enforcement, law enforcement are doing to support the services and the housing that's being done in the community, kind of this robust, all-around solution to address this issue in our community. So thank you very much.
John, any comments?
No.
Okay, well, hopefully we're going to have some follow-up presentations that we don't get it all in one shot. It's very difficult. It also opens our eyes to actually what's happening out there relative to what our perception of what's happening out there. And I think that we could do a better job, I hope, than other communities, just because we're a small community. And I think we've been doing a pretty good job. After you take, Marysville's pretty rough to them. But if you ever get down to Sacramento or you ever get to other places, you've seen nothing yet. You've seen nothing. And, so apparently we're doing a better job than most, which gives me hope. So hopefully we'll have once every couple of months to come visit us.
Would you like to do it quarterly? Would that be?
That would be nice. That would be nice, and it give us hope for something happening, and hopefully something positive in the law enforcement area would help us out, because I know it's very difficult for the sheriff to move anybody or code enforcement. So, all right, any questions from the public? Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. I think we've got one more, and I'm not too sure. Let's see, receive update from clerk recorder elections. Okay. You thought we were going to go miss you, huh? Okay.
Good morning.
Julie, microphones there.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Anna Hilligus, Clerk Recorder, Registrar of Voters. Vasquez, Board of Supervisors, thank you for having me this morning. I'd like to share a little bit of information about elections with you. And I have tried to cover some important topics, but today is really just going to be kind of a scratching the surface on these, as they're all very complex items. So what we do in Yuba County in elections is we conduct federal, state, and local elections for Yuba County. And so what I wanted to first take a look at is the voting systems used in Yuba County. We're going to go back a day or two. For those of you that remember the old data vote punch card voting systems that were outlawed with the Help America Vote Act. So Yuba County, we used that up until 2005. That was a punch card system, paper card ballots, and it used an automated card reader to tally and produce results. In 2005 to 2019, we switched to the Sequoia voting system, which was a combination system. It was an optical scan and an electronic voting system. This was the only system we had that actually cast electronic votes. So we had our ballots were a combination of paper and electronic. And the tally was the result of importing electronic results and scanning the paper ballots. Currently, we have the Dominion voting system, which is a paper-based system. It only has paper ballots. It's an optical scan and adjudication system. And the tally is by optical scan of those paper ballots. In 2022, we had the addition to our comprehensive system of the No-Ink poll pad. This is an electronic roster of voters. This is a separate system from Dominion, and it is used to check in voters and to indicate that they have voted. A little bit, this is just kind of a recap of our current system. It is a paper ballot system. Every voter is going to cast a paper ballot. They have the option of using the electronic voting equipment to mark their ballot, but that only marks a paper ballot. So it's to help accessible voters. And also the system will retain an image of those ballots when they're scanned for tally. All of our system tallies are validated during the canvass process as part of the 1% hand count. And in addition, we conduct a pre-election logic and accuracy testing. The system, there's two systems that sometimes get conflated. The voting system, the Dominion voting system, is an air-gap system. It is not connected to the internet. It has no wireless functionality. It is only connected to the external world through being plugged into an electrical outlet. The poll pad system is a completely separate system used to process voters, and it does connect via secure cellular connection from the poll sites back. But again, that doesn't impact any votes, that only processes voters. So the election system is comprised of several layers of security. We have physical security, we have technical security, and we have procedural security. So you could say we don't have all our eggs in one basket. Some of the examples of physical security, and this is just some, it's not a comprehensive listing, is that our voting system and our voted ballots, those are all retained in secure areas. Once we have ballots on site, which have physical, they have a motion detector alarm, they have secure badge access that tracks the person that swipes. That's being implemented right now. Previously, we had the number access doors. Our election office during the election cycle has additional security that requires all observers to be escorted, and everybody has to be displaying their election security badge at that time. We also use tamper evidence seals across many processes, and these all have serial numbers, and they would display any signs if anybody had tried to access whatever that seal is attached to. Technical security, you can see that's a little more complex. The trusted build, the software we use on our voting system, every election that is the equipment is wiped and it's reinstalled, and it's reinstalled from what is called the trusted build. And the trusted build is when that system was certified at the state took that copy of the software and we acquire it from the state. So it's sometimes they refer to it as a golden image, but it's the trusted build that's used. All access to the system is protected by password logins, and those password logins are set by the system administrator, which is a member of IT staff here in the county, and myself, and have access by the deputy. There are some functions that require additional access, but that's provided to our staff as needed. Again, the Dominion system, it is an air gap system. So to access or to do anything with that system, you must have physical access. It doesn't have hardware or capability for Wi-Fi or wireless connectivity. We also have procedural security, and we have extensive procedures that ensure the security. This is a list of some of them. The 2-person rule with ballots, there must always be 2 people. That includes coming from the poll site at election night. It requires 2 poll workers to return their ballots. We have extensive chain of custody documentation that is associated with the voting system, with the ballots, with the processes we perform. We conduct the logic and accuracy testing. And what that is about 2 weeks before the election, we have a test deck of ballots that are already marked. So we know the outcome, and we run them through each piece of equipment, and then we match what is our expected outcome to the system generated outcome to validate those results. We also have BBM signature verification. And as I had mentioned, the voting systems are reformatted and software reinstalled prior to every election. We also have ballot tracking, which is a procedure that kind of involves the public. It allows them to sign up to track their ballot through the process, through the mail, through our office, and through its final adjudication. Our election security partners, the Yuba County Sheriff, the Yuba County District Attorney, Yuba County IT, and the California Secretary of State Office of Voting Systems Technology Assessment. They are the ones who actually certify the voting systems. And I believe at this current time, there are 4 systems certified for use in California, but one of those systems is the Los Angeles system. And so it's really only available to Los Angeles. So I wanted to talk through processing ballots. Again, this is not a super detailed look, but this is kind of the life of the ballot through our office upon the time we receive them. So the ways that we receive ballots, we receive them through the mail. We receive them at drop boxes. We receive them in person at our office and in person at polling sites on election day. All of those have a form of a chain of custody tracking associated with them that follows them through the process. As I had mentioned, the two-person teams for the Dropbox, our staff, those are our staff members who at least twice, 3 times a week, go to those drop boxes and pick those up and bring those directly back to our office. Once we receive the ballots, we've started that chain of custody. The next step is verifying that voted ballot. Is that ballot eligible to be counted? And the way that we do that is a manual process. We have 2 extra help staff that come in for every election, and they verify the signature on the envelope against the digital image of the signature on the voter's record. If the signature doesn't match or the voter forgot to sign the envelope, then we have a cure process, which we will reach out to that voter and provide them the opportunity to fix that issue. After all the ballots have been verified, they sit sealed until the Saturday before the election. We call that absentee Saturday. And on that day, or before that day, the day before, what we're going to do is we're going to balance every ballot that we have against a report in our registration system. So when we check in a ballot and say that signature is good, the system knows there's 1 ballot we should have in that precinct. So the last step is, prior to that, we print a report that says the number of good ballots in each precinct, and we hand count those envelopes to verify that those match. If they don't match, we don't move forward until they do. Typically, if they don't match, we hand sort them by precinct. Somebody put one in the next box over, so we have an over-under, and we just have to get them into their right home. If a ballot got in there that had not been checked in, that process is printing a list of all voters in that precinct and marking them off one by one until we identify the one that wasn't checked in, and we submit it back through processing. On absentee Saturday, we do that here in the board chambers. It's open to the public. We try to have at least about 10 teams, and the teams of 2, what they do is that's when the ballots are going to be opened and inspected. Opening these ballots alone, just opening the envelope, takes about 8 hours. And the teams will then, the first thing they're doing is going to separate the ballot from the envelope. That is where the voter privacy is protected. Once the ballot is separated from the envelope, there is no way to associate that ballot back to that voter. The teams will then inspect the ballots to ensure that they can be tallied. And what they're looking for is if it's been torn, if it has jelly, if they used a red pen, because the scanners will not pick up red pens, it would see that as a blank ballot. We will pull those ballots to be adjudicated during canvass, or to be duplicated during canvass. Also, voters have a habit, we've all been trained, when you make a mistake on your check, to make your correction and initial it, but that's considered personally identifiable information, which requires us then to duplicate that ballot. So that ballot would also be pulled. As they finish inspecting each batch, they continue the audit tracking. We have audit tracking forms that are going to follow them from that last balancing step through the tally process. Next is tally, and they're submitted. Usually we do that here in the back of the room. It all happens right in the same room. We have IT staff who assist us in this, and the ballots are then scanned by batch. Once they're scanned, they're placed into an envelope, into a box, and secured. As the ballots are scanned, if the system detects that somebody has overvoted a contest, that's going to be sent to an adjudication workstation, which is a screen that displays the ballot. And we have an adjudication team that will look at that ballot and determine if voter intent can be identified. If voter intent can be identified, they will make that correction at that time and add it. It'll add an audit log entry onto the image of that ballot. We have election day and canvass. These are very big activities. and we have them on one slide each, so it's very brief. For election day, we have our poll workers and we tell them at training, they are the front line of elections on election day. They are our security in the field. We have teams of at least 4, depending on the kind of traffic that poll site gets, maybe more. We have poll pads now, which enable us to process voters upon voting at the poll site, where before voters had to bring their ballot. If they didn't vote the ballot that was mailed to them, they'd have to vote provisional if they didn't turn that in. Now we have the ability to check, have they voted anywhere in the state? And if they haven't, we're able to allow them to cast a ballot there at their precinct on election day. We have, we do in Yuba County, we feel very strongly that it is up to the voters to choose whether they wish to vote on the ballot marking device or to use what we call the fill in the bubble paper ballot. And then at the end of the night, they have some audits to complete and some tracking, and they pack everything up securely and they return it to the government center where we conduct central tally. And that's where we tally the ballots from the precincts. During canvass, typically the activities, we count the uncounted ballots. There's usually a large number of uncounted ballots that remain to be counted. And the larger that number, the longer it's going to take to do it, of course. Last election, we had a huge number of vote by mail ballots turned in at the polling places on election day and in the drop boxes on the Mondays, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And all of those ballots, they cannot just be immediately tallied. They must go through the process. They have to have the signature verification, and all those steps must occur before we can even begin prepping them for counting. We perform the 1% manual tally of randomly selected precincts. We select those precincts on the first day of canvass. We have members of the canvass for this act. We have ping pong balls that have the precinct numbers and they randomly select those. We also process and count provisional ballots. Provisional ballots are typically last because we need to assure all other voting history has been applied to every voter's record so that we can make a determination whether or not to count their provisional ballot. We also audit the precincts and the voting supplies, and this is when we damage or duplicate any of the damaged ballots. On maintaining the voter rolls, so there's federal legislation, the National Voter Registration Act, also known as Motor Voter. It requires the state to offer voter registration at other agencies. It also mandates the actions that we can take regarding changes to voter registrations. And then the Help America Vote Act, which also requires the state to have a statewide database, which we have here in California. So the county is somewhat of a front end into the state system. You can see this is the NVRA, which is the National Voter Registration Act. These are the list maintenance mailings. This is the rules that we have to apply to changes of address for voters. This tells us what we can use to change addresses, what responses, what communication we have to send to the voter, and then how we respond based on however that mailing is returned. Is it returned by the post office as undeliverable? Is it returned by the voter as signed? All of those cover all the scenarios. While maintaining the voter rolls, so the sources of the updates that apply to those maintenance activities, of course, the voters notify us. VoteCal, which is the statewide system, we receive messages from them. The California Secretary of State online voter registrations, California DMV, Department of Public Health, Department of Corrections, Yuba County Superior Court, and the Postal Service. Those are all sources for information that allow us to initiate that maintenance process. And VoteCal, the current statewide system, across all 58 states, prior to that system, we were not able to have that near real-time connection to other counties. And if a voter registered here, their registration may remain active in their previous county for some period of time, where now that's an instantaneous cancellation of the registration in the previous county. And it's a daily activity that we perform. We have one staff member that is at least half-time assigned to voter maintenance activities. This is, I think we've all aware that there's a lot of questions associated with elections. We get a lot of questions from the public. We receive a lot of flyers or publications about elections. And so we wanted to address some of the ones that have been received and that are the most common. One, a flyer that was distributed among many counties has the statement, there are millions of inactive voters still on California's voter rolls, many who are still receiving ballots at their old address. But inactive voters, they can't be registered in 2 counties at the same time because of the VoteCal system. And if they're an inactive voter, they don't receive election materials. They don't receive a voter guide and they don't receive a ballot. Another was that one county had eliminated or had a reduction of 87% of their polling sites, which was in fact true, but the county had moved from traditional polling places to vote centers. So the reduction was vote centers, but the opposite side was that those vote centers were then open for 11 days prior to the election. We've heard this one for years. Provisional ballots are only counted if there's a close race. And we don't even know where this originated, but all provisional ballots are processed. A determination is made regarding every single provisional ballot, whether to count it or not to count it. We had a recent one. Devices are connected via the FirstNet, First Responder Cellular Service, which allows votes to be fraudulently changed. This article was based on information from another state. In that state, I'm not familiar with the configuration of that state, but their system did have some vote tabulators on the same network. So that would be a question for that jurisdiction. But in our county, we have no tabulators at all at the precincts. And the poll pad, which does use a cellular connection, is not processing votes in any manner. Another was that people can vote up to 23 days after Election Day. And that's tied to the ability of voters to cure their ballot or ballots to be submitted by mail. But all of those ballots must have been cast by Election Day. If a ballot is postmarked in the mail, Election Day, and received up to 7 days after, then we are required to accept that ballot and put it through the process. We still have to verify the signature, still have to take all those steps. But if a voter has also, their signature didn't match, or they forgot to sign, and the ballot was received by Election Day, they have up until 2 days before we certify the election to cure that ballot. But these ballots have all been cast in a timely manner. And one that we hear is that voters receive more than one ballot. And there are occasions where this is absolutely appropriate. We send our mailing file to the printer, but things are still happening. And in particular, with the presidential primary coming up, ballots will be issued by party. So if we submit our file and somebody is going to be mailed a ballot for one party, and a week later they come in and re-register with a different party, they're entitled to receive a different ballot. And that supplemental ballot would be mailed from our office. So it could be the timing could be that they receive them close to the same time, or they may not, it may be a few weeks later, but in fact, yes, they will have received 2 ballots. We also have a few voting tips for the public that will help. We encourage, and we'll be posting some of this information on our website and reaching out through various social media and such to encourage voters to check the status of their registration ahead of time. Know that everything, make sure you're registered, make sure you're registered at the correct address, and for the presidential primary that you're registered with the party that you choose. And we encourage people to sign up for ballot tracking through ballot tracks. This will notify them if their initial ballot, at the time their initial ballot is sent to them, it will notify them when we receive their voted ballot. It will tell them if their ballot is challenged, which means they didn't sign it or their signature didn't match. It'll send them a system right away and tell them, reach out to the elections office. There's an issue with your ballot. For voters voting their mail ballot, if your signature has changed, if it's been a long time since you registered, we encourage them to re-register to have a more current signature on file. Don't forget to sign their envelope. And if they want their results to be included in the results released at 8 p.m. on election night, their ballot needs to be turned in by noon on Friday before the election. For those voting in person, we'd encourage them to know where their polling place is. We'll have an online polling place lookup, and that information will be included on their voter guide. And if they'd like to avoid lines, as always, to try and pick some off-peak times. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the board?
Chair. Outstanding presentation. So thank you for coming in and giving that today. I'll just say from personal experience that for anyone who wants to learn more about elections or has concerns, one of the things they can do is sign up to be a poll worker. I did that for multiple years prior to being busy on Tuesdays with Board of Supervisor and Water Agency meetings. And I have to say, the first time I did it, I was blown away by all the security and precautions that were in place to protect the vote. And so I'd strongly encourage people to do that if they're just curious or they have concerns. Either way, it's a great way to help ensure that our democratic process continues. And I'd also encourage people to come in and watch the process. As you said, there's multiple times during canvass and during the absentee Saturday where the public can come in, witness it for themselves, ask questions. And I know you're great about answering questions from me, from the public. All people have to do is ask, right? And you're more than happy to address their concerns and explain how things work. And then I also love that you talked about the importance of trying to get your vote by mail ballot back to the county the Friday before the election, if you want it counted to appear in the results on election night. Obviously, it's still counted after that, but if you want it to be in the election results on election night, getting it back by then is really important. I'll also say, everyone expresses concern about how long it takes to count all the ballots after the election. The general public can help with that by getting their ballot in by that Friday, and it helps get that post-election process completed sooner because more of the ballots are processed up front and counted, and the results are available on election night. So thanks again.
That's absolutely correct. And we, one of the difficulties after election day, when there's a large number of ballots still to count, we have the public, we have candidates, everybody wants to know those numbers. And it can be agonizing waiting for the numbers, but there's things that must happen in certain steps. We want to make sure that in a rush to count those unprocessed absentees, we don't have somebody that we haven't posted their history in some way. We need to have all the ballots checked in and to verify if somebody received 2 ballots and tried to submit 2 ballots. We need to make sure that we have checked that before we submit them to be processed and sent to tally. It's important that the numbers be right.
Okay. John, anything?
Yeah, I had a comment. Well, I just wanted to thank you as well. And then maybe if our county could put out more information about that very thing, about people getting their ballots in before the Friday and the process. The general public doesn't know the process. I didn't know until I ran last year, and I actually came in on that Saturday and observed. And I was the only one here that came in from the public to observe. And it just was really unbelievable that everything you have to go through. And then my other question was, if somebody doesn't vote for so many elections, do you take them off? Because, you know, it seems to me like only half or so of the registered voters are voting. And it's very costly, as you guys all know, to do mailings and things like that. So is there any way we can get those people that aren't voting off so we don't have to mail to them? Or is that just a state law that they have to stay on there forever?
There's very strict reasons that we can cancel a voter. And so just not having voted is not one of them. But there's a combination of things that if we receive a notification from the post office, that person's address has updated, we can send a notification to them. Even if they don't respond, they are then moved to inactive status where they won't be receiving a ballot, won't be receiving election materials. And in the event they don't respond back to us at all, then after a period of time, after 2 federal general elections, if they have not voted and they have not made an effort to update their record, at that time, they would be canceled from the inactive. But it takes those notifications from a contact with the voter or one of those resource agencies to start that process.
So that whole election for me was kind of a whirlwind last year too. Do you provide that list of the candidates of just the people that vote and not, and the, you know, and the ones that are inactive, I should say?
The inactive voters are not included in a data file by default. Somebody would have to specifically request that information. The information we provide when somebody requests a data file is only active voters.
Okay.
All right. Very good presentation, Donna. Appreciate it. Learned a little bit about the elections, but more important, there's been a number of close races where, you know, they've even had recounts on it, and I don't think you've had to change an election result because of a recount. So that's that says a lot about the thoroughness of your staff.
Thank you. Oh. It's a hardworking group, and we really take every precaution with every step of the process. And everybody in our office understands the importance of the election being correct, accurate, and the final results being a true reflection of the votes cast.
Yeah, there's a couple elections I think were within 5 votes or something ridiculous, and
we've had
your vote does count.
A couple recounts. We've had a couple that were very close. One went to a recount, and it was the next election cycle. The same candidate was in a close race again and did not choose to request a recount on the second. And the first election recounted the whole jurisdiction.
Okay. Well, apparently they got more faith in you now. Thank you very much, Don.
I had one other question I thought of. So after you run the votes, you put them in different bags or whatever, and you randomly sample those as well, hand count randomly those as well, right?
We randomly sample 1% of the precincts, but that must touch every contest. So what happens is the first precinct we draw, we count everything on that ballot. And then whatever contests have not been touched, we continue drawing different precincts until we have covered every contest in the election.
Okay.
Thank you.
Through the chair. A couple of things. Will your presentation be online? Will it be on the website or?
I don't know if it will be on as part of the board package or.
Yuba-Sutter Live has it on their YouTube channel usually, so.
Okay.
Just to get my head clear. So exactly how does Dominion help your process?
How does the voting system in particular, or Dominion?
Well, the Dominion machine, I guess, for the system.
There's three certified systems, and I'm only familiar with one of the other two at this time. They're relatively similar. The Dominion system begins at creating our ballots. They design our ballots, and those are printed by a separate printing vendor. And then through the system allows us to tally at a much higher rate. It also has a system of checks and balances. And the way the system is set up is we set up the first part of the election on one server. And then when we're prepared to move to tally, that we move from that server to a different server as protections along the way. And this system, what's new with this system from our previous systems, well, one, it does not have any electronic votes. And it added the adjudication process. Ballots that previously would have had to been duplicated by hand during canvass, which is another group of ballots that aren't counted, now can be adjudicated through the tally process, and we can make determinations regarding voter intent when they overvote. I think there's a much bigger answer really to that, but I think, I think that encapsulates.
If you ever had to go to the so-called paper ballots, that'd be a huge impact on the whole process.
When you say paper, do you mean the hand count?
Hand count, yeah.
The hand count, if it's something for people who have never participated in even the 1% that's conducted every election, that without having done that, it's very hard to wrap your mind around. It seems like that should be a quick and easy process, but it's not. It would add a tremendous amount of cost. It would delay results significantly. Currently, the standards don't allow you to start processing until the day before, which means Monday you're starting to tally or to count these hand counts. And just for reference, our 1% typically takes 2 or 3 days, and that's with a portion. And then just the logistics, you need the space. We get 10 absentee rooms in the board chambers. To hand count, you would probably need 400 to 500 people to accomplish that in time to certify the election.
Wow.
And to get people trained and to do counting, that intricate counting in large groups, because they have to be supervised also, just adds tremendous complexity and time and money. I'm not sure that Yuba County has a facility. Current requirements are that you be in one location.
Okay, well, that helps me. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? Any questions from the public? Okay, Donna. Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me, sir. Could you come up and talk here? Give us your name and right over here. Public comment. And go ahead and talk to the board. Yeah.
There we go. Is that okay?
Yeah. State your name for the.
I'm Ray Pinchin, and I'm just curious. I listen to Mike Lindell and some of the conservative networks, and so I'm curious about cast vote records. Are they available?
The cast vote records are available. We have been providing them for every request we receive for a couple of years now.
Oh, you have?
We have, yes. The cast vote record files have been produced. I think the first request we got for them were for the 2020 elections, and we have provided for all requests we've received.
You have provided?
We have.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay.
One thing, if I could, in regard to cast vote records, and this was from another county, one of the misconceptions is that the county had, and I'm just going to use round numbers, they had 1,000 voters. and they had 1,900 cast vote records. And that contributed to why do we have 900 more than we have voters? But the issue was that this county, like Yuba County, was a 2-card ballot. And each card of the ballot generates its own cast vote record. So there were actually, in that scenario, some people hadn't returned one of their cards, or you would expect it to be just double.
Through the chair, just a quick follow-up question related to that question. The records that the county has is just who voted. You have no idea how they voted and who they voted for, right? That is not any kind, that record doesn't exist, right?
There's 2 different pieces to that. When we provide voting history related to voters, it says voted at a polling site, voted by absentee. The cast vote record is a record of every single ballot and how it was cast, but it has no association to an individual voter. It's merely kind of ones and zeros of this card A that went through this scanner had a vote for this person, and this person.
Okay.
And that's all it has.
A progressive in-time vote. So you see as the votes are tallied, when they're tallied, it's just a count.
Exactly. Each batch, as it goes through the scanner, so the cards, they've been separated. They came from envelopes. They've been moved around and such. But as they went through the scanner, this cast vote record reflects this is card 1 that went through the scanner. This is card 2 that went through the scanner. And here are the associated votes.
In a progressive order, yeah.
It doesn't tally as it goes, if I'm understanding correctly.
What's the process to request them?
So you just have to complete a voter data request file in our office, or you can submit a public records act through our website.
So we're going to have to address the board, and she'll answer your question. Okay. It's not a two-way question.
I'm sorry, I'm not used to this.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Got one more question. John.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, we're Johnny Burke, Yuba County resident, and just a comment. Thank you for explaining the Dominion thing, because there's so much things online about Dominion and just knowing it's not on Wi-Fi and stuff. And just wanted to compliment our clerk recorder. In case y'all didn't know, when she was running, there was something funny that happened that night. We had a local news reporter here who came in with his camera and was showing live reporting, and she was so courteous and escorted him out very nicely. Sir, you can't be recording while people are voting. And then he turned to her and said, "Hey, aren't you running? The people can vote for you." And she was people can come and place their votes. Didn't put herself out there, didn't break any. And so I just very much admire you. You had great poise in that. So I just wanted to give a little credit to you there. Just want to share that. That's all.
All right. Okay. What was it as bad as you thought it would be?
No.
Okay. All right, Donna. Thank you very much. It was a great presentation. I think you answered a lot of questions for people.
Very good. Thank you.
So, all right. Public communication. Do we have any public that want to talk? We do. Okay.
Any person may speak about any subject of concern, provided it is within the jurisdiction of the Board of Supervisors and is not already on today's agenda. The total amount of time allotted for receiving such public communication shall be limited to a total of 15 minutes, and each individual or group will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Prior to this time, speakers are requested to fill out a request to speak card and submit it to the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. If you are participating via Zoom and wish to comment, please use the raise hand function or *9 if participating on a phone. Please note, no board action can be taken on comments made under this heading. And through the chair, we have one card, Mr. Tony Farley.
Hello, Tony.
Hey, Andy. I'm 25 from South Sur County here. Thank everybody for serving. Thank you to the Department of Wildlife for mutualing Yuba County the Yuba County Sheriff Department mutually with wildlife. There's been a lot of disasters in Southern California, LA, San Diego. There was Hurricane Hurley over there, and during Monday it rained. The after effects from Hurricane Hillary. So hopefully everybody stays safe during the storm. We're less driving. Be safe. Thank you for your service, County Administrator, County Council, guys at Black Belt, good guy, Chair, Andy, John, Gary, Seth, and Dawn. Thank you for sure. Thank you for Rachel. Thank you. Thank the Sheriff for service.
All right. Okay, we're going to move board and staff member reports up. So, Don, would you like to start?
Briefly, just some compliments. The stand down operation, that was really good. I got a chance to get over there for a little bit on Thursday, I think. The service awards that the county did, that was much appreciated. And I'm glad we did that proclamation for Brenda Robbins. That was well received. Thank you.
Okay.
Just one item today. Wanted to make sure everyone's aware the largest event of the year is coming up in Plumas Lake this Saturday, the Plumas Lake Block Party. It goes from 3:30 to 8 at Uthé Wood Park. There'll be a lot of great food, kids activities, vendors, community groups are there, including I know the Sheriff's Department's going to be there. And a beer garden, 3 live local bands throughout the day. So I'd encourage anyone looking for something to do on Saturday. I know there's a lot of great things going on Saturday, but you can come by Plumas Lake earlier in the day, and then you can go to one of the other great events in the evening that are going on around the community. So that's it.
Okay, John.
So I had a few things that I've done in the last couple of weeks. One was a meeting with the fire chiefs for everybody in District 5 fire chiefs on Monday, and then a follow-up meeting with Congressman Kiley here in OES. And I'd like to thank John Stone for coordinating that. We're trying to work on better fire prevention in the hills. I met with Public Works. I'd like to thank Craig for putting that together on Pendola Road. Did a tour up around Pendola and Garden Valley and saw the work we're doing up there and learned a lot about what we can and can't patch on the roads and why. So I get back to my constituents. Was able to witness Ingrid Coleman getting sworn in as on the, what is it? Commission on Aging. And I had another lady came in as well. I wasn't there. I can't remember her name right now. I went to the stand down and for a minute, and they were gracious enough to give a financial award to the girl that helped me do the pies and kind of put that all together. She's going to college, Cal Poly Pomona, and they gave her some money to thank her for selling all those pies. So that was a good deal. Had a meeting with PG&E Vegetation Management. So I'm getting some clarity on what PG&E vegetation crews will and won't take from alongside the road, so I can get back to a lot of people in the hills. And actually, they've actually been doing some of it already. So, and last week I was invited to speak at the Yuba County Democratic Central Committee meeting, and I went and spoke and updated them on everything we're doing and with the water agency. Then this past weekend, I participated in the rib cook-off at the Mountain Fair. I'm pretty sure I would have won, but the Sheriff's Department brought a ringer in. They had Neil Houston cooking, which he helped me out quite a bit. Him and Chad helped me, or I would have had raw ribs. But next year I'm coming for them. I'll be #1 next year at the Mountain Fair.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Last month we did the ribbon cutting for the Tri-County Development Center. For those that didn't know, that it's 32 beds from 48, and it cost $22.3 million, and it was a unique opportunity for 3 counties to actually cooperate together And during that time, I was told about a young gentleman who appeared at the facility, ribbon cutting, and he was a prior guest at juvenile hall, and he stated he got to know Brent from the faculty pretty good, and the individual at the hall gave us this rundown on what he did. He stated he was juvenile hall for some time when he was young. These are the success stories we'd like to have. He then went on to tell when he got out of juvenile hall, he joined the Army. While in the Army, he worked towards and became an Army military police officer. When he was discharged after his tour, he decided he wanted to be a correctional officer for the juvenile hall here in Marysville. He told me he'd gone through all the schooling, background checks, certifications. He stated that he filled out the application to work at the new facility. Is very hopeful to be able to work at the very same facility where he was able to turn his life around. Also, he didn't have a car, so he actually went to the trouble to rent a U-Haul truck so that he could drive out for the ceremony and say hello to the people who helped him many years ago. He's excited and hopeful to be able to help kids like him get their life together. I'll tell you what, having run a teen center and had kids come back and tell you what a difference you made in their life, we have to understand that our camp singer and our juvenile hall makes a positive change in a lot of kids' lives, and we're one of the few successful juvenile hall facilities that are in the state. Also, I want to bring up, we are also on the Yuba Water Agency, and some of the things that we have done never gets over to the county. And I want to bring the Watershed Resilience Program successes to date. We've invested $10.8 million to leverage more than $172 million in external funds, collaborating with 19 partners, helped develop and fund 14 projects in Yuba County and the upper watershed, more than 6,100 acres treated so far, and the planning, including a NEPA EIS for all 210,000 acres of North Yuba watershed, and the CEQA for all 175,000 of forested acres in Yuba County. So that's just some of the successes the water agency has. I'm going to see if we can have the water agency have a special bulletin to the Board of Supervisors meeting so that the rest of the people know what's happening. All right, and attended the stand down, and that's pretty much it. Do you have anything? Yes, sir.
Actually, I was going to ask Jeremy Strang, Building and Code Enforcement Manager, to provide the board a brief update. There was a public comment at the last board meeting concerning a property out in the Edgewater area.
Okay.
Good morning, board. Yes.
More good news.
To give you a brief on the community member that had a concern about a neighboring property. I'll keep this very brief. We are in code enforcement aware of that parcel, and actions have been taken regarding that property. I would just add to that your board is very well aware of our limited resources, and that we prioritize based on severity to the risk to the public, all of our cases because of those limited resources. So again, yes, we are aware that there's some concerns at that property, and we have taken actions toward that property. So anything more that I can help you with, I'm happy to.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, County Council, anything?
Nothing from our office, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. We go to the county departments. So we pulled item 400. So we'll start with 417. Health and Human Services approve an agreement with Children's Home Society of California for Emergency Child Care Bridge Program.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. My name is Jamie Bartolome, and I'm a Deputy Director at Health and Human Services. I'm coming before you today to request your consideration for approving the renewal agreements between Yuba County Health and Human Services and Children's Home Society for the Bridge and Stage 1 child care programs. Stage 1 child care is a subsidized child care program that is provided to families participating in the Welfare to Work program. Welfare to Work families eligible to subsidized child care can choose the type of child care their child receives, such as licensed child care centers, licensed family child care homes, or licensed exempt care. Through this partnership with Children's Home Society, we ensure parents have access to stable child care for their children in order to fully engage in the Welfare to Work program as we support them towards self-sufficiency. For this program, 2,687 children were served. The Bridge program addresses child care needs as barriers for families otherwise willing to bring a child in the foster care system into their home and for parenting youth in the foster care system. It provides time-limited vouchers for child care and child care navigator services for families to assist with accessing child care. There is also a trauma-informed care training and coaching component for child care providers to enhance their ability to provide nurturing and safe environments for children. The Bridge program is not an entitlement. Instead, it is a time-limited bridge to longer-term child care solutions used at the time of placement to stabilize children in the best possible settings. This ensures that caretakers have adequate support to balance their work and home lives. The goals of this program are to increase the number of foster children successfully placed in home-based family care settings, increase placement stability, increase capacity of child care providers to meet the needs of foster children in their care, and maximize funding to support the child care needs of eligible families. The Bridge program has been a great success, and the benefits that it provides to our children and foster families has been very positive. We have served 153 children through this program. The cost for Stage 1 child care agreement is $1,600,000 per year, of which 83% of the cost is going directly towards client services. The cost for the Bridge child care agreement is $156,770 per year. There is no county general fund contributed to operate the programs, as both are funded by state and federal sources. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Any questions from the public? We'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we need a roll call? Okay. All right. All right. No questions from the public. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The measure passes.
Thank you.
Okay. County Administrator. Approve employment agreement with Matt Riccardi.
All right. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Kevin Mallon, County Administrator. So the item before you today is to approve an employment agreement with Matt Riccardi. Now, typically with an at-will position, you'd also see and appoint the person to that particular position. I just wanted to point out that Matt's position is one that's unique. It's at a position that's appointed by the presiding judge, but it is a position that is a county employee. And so the employment agreement before you kind of outlines that relationship, but it makes it clear that as a county employee, that would be following our county policies and procedures. But ultimately his appointment is by the courts. Okay. So the highlights, and I bulleted them in the staff report of the employment agreement. We outlined the salary, vehicle allowance, and then what I was just describing there as far as the appointment and abiding by county policies and ordinances. Is pretty much kind of the summary of the agreement. Other than that, it's our standard agreement we have for at-will county department heads. Okay. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have, and then also Matt, here, if you'd like.
Okay. Any questions from the board? No questions from the board. I think we all Matt, would you like to say something?
Morning, Chair Vasquez, members of the board, Matt Riccardi with probation. To start, I just really want to thank Chief Jim Arnold. I don't think I'd be up here today if it wasn't for him. You know, he put in 30 years of service with the county and 14 years as our chief. And it's tough when I get kind of emotional when I talk about him because he has a big heart for our staff and for Yuba County, and especially me. And over the years, we've become not just coworkers, we've become great friends. And I wouldn't be here today without his leadership. And so I'm definitely excited and honored for this opportunity going forward to work with the board, county leadership, and our partners. It's a big responsibility, and our department has always served our county with the highest level of integrity and professionalism, and I plan to continue that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. No further questions from the board. No further questions from the public. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion
I'll second it.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Welcome aboard, Mr. Riccardi. All right, correspondence.
We have two agenda items. Number 416-2023, receive independent audit of financial records for Browns Valley Irrigation District for calendar year ending December 31st, 2022. 425-2023 is a letter from James Rarziniak Jr. regarding California Municipal Finances Authority Community Facilities District number 2023-13.
All right. We have 2 items for closed session, but first we're going to take a 5-minute break.
You know, yeah, it was 10 minutes.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.